Your phone buzzes. Hey, can I come over? And immediately, before you even finish reading, something in your chest tightens. Not because you hate this person. You don't. But the thought of them entering your space, breathing your air, sitting on your couch, it feels like a violation you can't explain. You type back, yeah, sure, come by. But your brain is already whispering, there goes my entire day. If this sounds like you, let me tell you something important. You're not broken, you're not rude, and you're definitely not antisocial. Your nervous system just runs on a completely different operating system than most people. One that charges in silence and drains in company. Let me show you what's actually happening inside your brain. Here's the thing nobody tells you about social energy. It's not a metaphor. It's biochemistry. Your brain runs on neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that make you feel energized or exhausted. Extroverts? Their brains throw a dopamine party every time someone rings the doorbell. Dopamine is the more chemical, the reward neurotransmitter. Parties, noise, people, chaos, that's fuel for them. But you run on acetylcholine instead, a quieter chemical, one that doesn't scream for stimulation. It whispers for focus, for depth, for thinking without interruption. When you're alone, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for deep thought, finally gets to work at full power. But here's the kicker. You're not less sensitive to dopamine. You're more sensitive, way more. Research shows that introverted brains respond to dopamine like someone with zero spice tolerance biting into a ghost pepper. An extrovert needs the whole jalapeno to feel alive. You? One flake of red pepper and your system is screaming, that's enough. So when a guest comes over, even someone you love, your dopamine system kicks in whether you want it to or not. You're suddenly managing stimulation you didn't ask for, tracking their movements, reading their energy, responding to their tone shifts, calculating when it's polite to laugh. And your battery, the one that only charges in silence, it starts draining, 1% at a time. This isn't you being difficult. This is your nervous system being very honest about what it needs to function. But this is only half the story, because even when you genuinely love someone, even when the conversation flows, something exhausting is still happening beneath the surface. You're performing, not in a fake way, not manipulatively, but in a real, costly, neurologically measurable way. Let's zoom out for a second. In public, you've learned to modulate, to smile at the right moments, to nod, to ask follow-up questions even when you're fading fast. It's called social masking, and it's not optional. Home is supposed to be the one place where you finally get to take the mask off, where your face can rest, where you don't have to calculate the appropriate level of enthusiasm for someone's story about their dentist appointment. But when someone knocks, the mask goes back on. Not because you're lying, but because humans are wired for social reciprocity. When someone gives energy, your brain automatically mirrors it. When they share, you respond. When they need reassurance, you provide it. This is emotional labor, and it's expensive. Studies show that emotional labor depletes cognitive resources in real time. Not, I feel tired. Your brain is literally burning more glucose, processing more variables, running more social calculations than a chess grandmaster. You're reading micro-expressions, tracking tone, deciding if that pause means they're upset or just thinking, adjusting your posture so they feel welcome, all while your internal monologue quietly counts down. How much longer until they leave? And here's what makes it worse. The nicer you are, the more it costs. Because truly, kind people don't just tolerate guests. They work to make them comfortable. They offer drinks, they laugh at jokes, they create warmth, which means the warmest, most empathetic people are often the ones most exhausted by hosting. Not because they're bad at it, because they're too good at it. Your prefrontal cortex, already working overtime, is now managing someone else's emotional experience on top of your own. And that's not sustainable. Not when your battery only charges in silence. Now here's where it gets deeper. People who hate having guests over aren't running from connection. They're protecting something most people don't realize they have. A rich, complex inner world that requires space to exist. Neuroscience backs this up in a way that's almost poetic. Introverts have thicker gray matter in their prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for abstract thought, planning, and internal reflection. Thicker gray matter means more neural resources devoted to inner experience. While extroverts live in the moment, you live in layers. Thoughts stacked on thoughts, reflections on reflections, an entire mental ecosystem that hums quietly when left alone. But the moment someone enters your space, that ecosystem gets disrupted, not destroyed, disrupted. Like trying to read a book while someone keeps asking what page you're on. The words are still there, but you can't sink into them. Solitude isn't loneliness for you. It's oxygen. It's the only environment where your brain gets to run its preferred programs without interference, where ideas can form slowly, where emotions get processed without an audience, where you don't have to explain yourself to yourself. And when that gets interrupted, even by people you love, it feels like loss. Not loss of them, loss of you, which is why the relief you feel when the door finally closes isn't guilt, it's exhaling. Your nervous system returning to baseline, your prefrontal cortex resuming its rhythm, your battery, slowly, finally, beginning to charge again. Here's what society gets wrong about people who hate having guests over. They think you're cold, distant, maybe even selfish. But the truth is so much more beautiful than that. You're not avoiding connection, you're curating it, because you understand something most people spend a lifetime missing. Not all togetherness is connection, and not all solitude is loneliness. You've learned that you can love someone deeply and still need them to leave. That care doesn't require constant proximity, that intimacy doesn't demand performance, that the deepest relationships are the ones that respect your need to disappear and recharge. You're not broken, you're not cold. You're just someone whose richest experiences happen internally, whose deepest thoughts require silence, whose sense of self depends on having space where no one else's energy is bleeding into yours. The world tells you to be more open, more available, more welcoming. But what if the truth is simpler? What if you're not meant to be a hotel? What if home is supposed to be a sanctuary, not a stage? What if the quiet isn't empty? What if it's full of you? And maybe, just maybe, protecting that isn't selfish. Maybe it's the most honest thing you've ever done.